It's time to take your business to the next level, the boss level. These are the premier business owner strategies and successes being utilized by the industry's top talent today. Rock your business like a boss, a VO boss. Now let's welcome your host, Ann Ganguzza.
Hey bosses, welcome to the VO Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Ann Ganguzza, along with my beautiful, very special guest co-host, Keisha Monk. Hey, Keisha.
Well, how's it going, darling?
So, Keisha.
Yes.
I read a very interesting thread on the Facebook, I'm going to call it the Facebook groups this week, about slating in your auditions and first impressions. And, should you slate in the beginning? Should you lead in the beginning? What sort of things should you do to capture the attention of that casting director? And shouldn't you? What do you think about? Let's talk about slating.
Well, this is going to be interesting because I don't know if there are any rules, but you know what you're talking about. Maybe I can learn something from this cast. So let's talk about it.
Well, there's no hard, fast rules, really. There's just traditions, right? Mm-hmm. And what people typically have done in the past and what we kind of discuss amongst ourselves as time evolves. I think in the beginning, it was always slate. I think it was always slate your name in the beginning. And at one point, I think it was slate in the character that you were going to be.
Yeah.
But that has kind of changed these past few years. I've heard different opinions on whether you should slate.
So let me ask you something then, because I never slate unless they tell me to.
See, now that I think that lately that's kind of been my go-to as well, because I think some people would say, don't waste the casting director's time. Just go right in with the read. They don't want to hear your life story in the beginning. They don't necessarily need to hear your name because, your file name has your name in it. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, though, I did slate because that was kind of what everybody said to do. But it was never really known to me. Like, what really should I do? I heard different things from different agents. So I like that you don't slate unless it's specifically mentioned. But I would say that everybody needs to read the specs so carefully. And I know this, gosh, we go over this so many times when you're auditioning. Like, you have to read the specs carefully. You have to read how to name that file carefully. You have to read, usually within that file, they'll tell you if they want a slate or not. And they'll tell you if they want 1 take or 2 takes.
And something as simple as like putting an extra space or not putting an underscore could potentially literally eliminate yourself from a possible position. So yes, you have to pay attention, especially to those labeling instructions. But slating, though. Now, again, I just, voiceover is very mental to me. Like, in other words, I try to create a visual in my mind and of the fact that I'm just not the only one that's auditioning for this potential job, right?
Absolutely.
And so making an impressive first impression is very, very important. Now, again, if the instructions say to slate, then I will, and hopefully we'll have time to talk about how to slate.
Well, I was just going to ask you, what tone of slate? Are you slating in Keisha? In Keisha's voice? Or are you slating in a character voice? Or are you slating how you think they want the spot to go? So you're leading into the spot?
And here are, again, I'm adhering to a set of unwritten rules. I simply say my name. Mm-hmm. If it is something crazy, like for a cartoon, then I may slate in that character's voice. But for the for initial, I would say 90% of the time that I'm auditioning for these regular commercial spots, I'm just saying Keisha. If they want me to act like an 80-year-old woman, I'll Keisha Monk, and then that's what I'll do.
And then you'll go into the 80-year-old woman, or will you say Keisha Monk as an 80-year-old woman?
No, just the name. They don't have that kind of time. They just don't.
I tend to agree. Well, I tend to agree with you there. But I meant, do you slate your name in the characters? Like, do you say Keisha Monk as an 80-year-old woman? Keisha Monk.
No, you mean that? Oh, no,
yeah,
no.
When you're
no,
yeah.
No, I generally don't. And
that's good. I think it shows a range if you don't.
Yeah.
It shows your real voice. Hey, I'm Keisha. And then boom, you go into your character.
Exactly. To me, that shows that I am versatile. I mean, I don't know in my mind, but again, I've never attended the school of slating, so this is just based. I mean, I haven't, and it's crazy. It has been incredibly annoying to me when I go to like a voice conference, and then there's this big spiel on slating. You think it's really not a big deal, but to some, but it really is. It really is.
And that's. You know what? You hit the nail on the head right there, because think of it. Who is it that you're submitting the audition to, right? And what are they used to, right? How would they like you to slate? And I think you're usually submitting to your agent. So I think it could even be agent specific as to how they like to hear it. Because when I'm auditioning for my agent, they typically get, hundreds of auditions, however many they get. They're the ones that are listening to it first to kind of shortlist that.
Right.
And so I think it would behoove any of you bosses out there, if you are continually auditioning for a particular agent, just to kind of understand what their preferred method is. Are you going to front slate? Also, there's a back slate.
Mm-hmm.
I've slated, at the very end. And how do you determine, or do you tell them if you're going to have 2 takes? And then the other thing that people have been talking about lately is, do you actually lead in and leave the lead in? There are some casting directors that like that because they say, oh, it makes you stand out more. So if I'm going to, lead in to be conversational, that might make my audition stand out from 200 others that don't do that.
For sure. So don't be afraid to ask, whoever you're auditioning for. I would say as well, if it's unclear, I would just ask,
And make sure that it's not written in the specs. It's interesting because I know I have one agent who has a particular way that they like me to name the file. But then if the audition comes in, a lot of times the client is specifying how they want the file to be named. And so if I don't, and that's always, for whatever reason, they put it in the smallest, finest print at the bottom of the page. So and every once in a while I get something back and it says, you didn't name the file properly. And I'm like, oops. So you have to make sure.
Well, you're lucky they got back to you and said that, because I know in a lot of instances, and you have to really realize that these agents are busy and they may not necessarily have time to personally coddle you. So, how you solve that problem? Read the instructions carefully and pay close attention.
Enough. And interestingly enough, last year when I had Liz Atherton in my agent series in the podcast, you guys, it was a fun series. We actually cast a job and gave out prizes at the end. And so we had a number of people who responded, and we had instructions on how to name the file and how to slate and give us 2 takes. And so there were so many people, there was a lot of people that didn't read the instructions. And it absolutely made a difference in terms of whether or not they got shortlisted. And I think, at first it came down to, is it the voice and the style that we're looking for? And then after that, if you had to really figure out, like if it was a close tie in your head between 2 people, it would be the person that named their file correctly or did the instructions or correctly, performed and named the file properly and did everything as they were told. They were the ones that won out.
There you have it.
So
they're the ones that would get it, and that's for sure. That is for sure.
So Keisha, where do you stand on the lead-in? So if you have, let's say, I'm going to say a commercial or any, but I think a lot of times when they say we want conversational, a lot of commercial auditions, people lead in to get themselves into a conversational mode. What do you do Do you leave it in your audition? Do you lead in and then take it out? Or
Oh, no. I always take it out. And even with the slate, you got to think, again, in my head, I'm like, okay, well, basically a slate is an introduction, right? And so I create this visual in my mind, like I'm literally introducing myself to someone. I see myself walking up to you, extending my hand for a handshake and saying, "Hi, how you doing? My name is
and
Keisha
I love
Monk."
that you said
You know,
that,
something
because
like
that's
that.
exactly what I tell students when they're, a lot of times with, it could be e-learning material when it's like, welcome to this course module, or hi, I'm so-and-so. It's the most difficult thing to sound conversational when it's like, hello, thank you. And so I love the fact that you extend your hand, because I always tell people when you're going to, say, hi, I'm so-and-so, and thanks for, whatever, you want to extend your arm out as if you're going to the door to open it and then welcome them into the room. And that's exactly what I do as well. And
Oh my God,
I will
it works.
say it works, but sometimes it's still hard. You would think after all these years, Keisha, of me extending my hand and saying, and I don't want it to sound like Anne Ganguza, which is, you want it to sound more, you want to be welcoming, you want to be, gracious and warm, and Anne Ganguza, and that sort of thing.
But that's exactly why I'm stressing to create the visual in your mind.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Don't make it verbal, make it physical. Literally close your eyes and visualize what you are doing. Yeah. I literally close my eyes, see myself walking up to someone and extending my hand. How are you? I'm Keisha Monk. And let me tell you,
are you saying that too, or
yeah,
and then
I say the whole thing.
Hi,
I take it
I'm
out.
Keisha Monk, and you just give it a beat before you say Keisha Monk.
I don't give it too much of a beat because I want it to be as natural as possible. But I do that. I might even have a whole 30-second conversation. If I feel like it doesn't sound right, I will literally talk myself into it. Like, oh my God, I was walking down the street one day and I wanted that Hubba Bubba. Remember Hubba Bubba from back in the day? Oh, girl, how you doing? I'm Keisha Monk. And it comes out perfectly.
I like that you said you have to lead. You do. Sometimes you have to lead into it with a lot of like scene
chatter,
because sometimes you just get yourself in that mode where you're like, I'm auditioning. It's one after the other. And it's like, Keisha Monk. And like, no, that doesn't sound genuine and conversational and welcoming, because you just go into that read mode. And so, you do have to get yourself in that conversation mode.
And I literally had an agent once who told me, because I wasn't really booking with her, and I asked her, and she was like, be honest with you, I think it's your slate. Your slate sounds too formal. Yeah, and I swear, as soon as I changed I created that visual and changed the tone of my slate, I started booking. True story.
Wow.
True story. I still have the email if you want to see it. Like I kept it because it was something that I made a conscious decision to change my behaviors, and I did it, and it literally worked. So you gotta keep that visual in your head.
So let me ask you then. So part of the debate on the group was between agents, was if you lead in, or maybe you should only lead in with a real person kind of read, and then leave it because it makes your audition stand out. Have you ever done that?
Well, wait a minute. Rephrase. Rephrase that.
So if it's a commercial audition and they want a real person read, and it's a dialogue, let's say the conversation is a dialogue, and a lot of times people will say, so hey, so anyway, and they'll launch into it after the so, or there's a very typical tendency to do something like, so Anne, blah, 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 blah. And so what the comment was, and this was from Mary Lynn Wisner, who I absolutely love, was that if it's a real person read, make that lead in very creative and nothing like, so Anne, or something, that's very typical.
Right.
Make it super original and leave that in, because that's going to make your audition stand out. And then we had other people who were saying, well, if it's not being asked for, why do we do it? Well, you want to make sure that people are listening and you're standing out. So,
well, my thing is I'm not that bold yet. Not when it comes to, auditions that are being sent to me by my agents. Whenever I have auditions from my agents, I follow instructions to the T. Now, if someone is just randomly asking me to do an audition through my website, yeah, there's room to be a little bit more creative, but I personally haven't, and I would kind of advise against that because, again, remember just a couple of minutes ago, when it comes to being shortlisted, you want to be on that list and be considered to be the one who follows instructions. And although it may, although it may be different and it may sound cool, I wouldn't do that.
And again, what was always so interesting to me when I really sat down and thought about it, it really, truly, I guess I never thought about when I was auditioning. For whatever reason, I thought, I would be auditioning for, maybe it was a McDonald's commercial. And I thought, okay, this is going to go to the McDonald's people. They're going to listen to it. And in reality, that's not the case. It's going to your agent first, who's going to then shortlist it. So that relationship with your agent is so important that you at least have enough of a relationship, or you've tried to have as much of a relationship so that you know what type of a, slate or not slate or tail slate or whatever it is, what they like and what they prefer. Because right now you want to impress them with your audition, because they're going to put you on the short list, and then that short list is going to go to the client. And so I think if you really now that I think of it like that, it's easier, right? Because we can all have a relationship with our agent, and we all should. If you've not tried to pick up the phone and call your agent, I'm going to tell you something. Try it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. You must humanize your relationship with your agent. It's very, very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it will make the difference.
So, Keisha, one or two takes on your auditions. Now that's another school of thought. It used to be only one, do your best take, and then I kept hearing, well, do 2 takes, but make your takes very different.
You know what I'll do, and this is just personal. There are no written rules. If it's an audition where I'm only reading a sentence or 2, then I'll do 2 takes. If it's something that's a little bit longer, I'll just do 1. Because again, in my mind, I cannot be the only one who's auditioning for this spot. If they're listening to 75 auditions, they might not. I might do something I might screw something up within the first sentence. And so if I do that, they're not going to listen to the rest of the 45 seconds. So yeah, I just really simple works with me,
I agree. I agree. If it's shorter,
1 take. Unless, again, if they're asking for 2 takes,
if it's shorter,
then you give them 2 takes. Right.
Yeah, if it's shorter, 2 takes for me. But they have to be completely different. And it can't just be a change in pitch. It has to be something completely different. And so I always try to think of a different emotion or a different scene that I'm reacting to give myself
different cadence, different rhythm.
Exactly. Cadence, rhythm, a very different second take. So, yeah. And I, again, now the other question I'm going to ask is, some auditions are really long. Always when I get those really long ones, personally, I'm like, really? Do I have to do the whole thing? Like, do you do everything that your agent sends you? Like, what if it's 2 pages of copy? Are you doing it?
Well, again, if it's my agent, I do whatever my agent tells me to do.
Let's say they don't specifically say the whole thing or not the whole thing. They just give you the paper. Because sometimes, that for years, I was like, oh my God, am I supposed to do the whole thing? And so after a while...
you have to be careful though, Anne, especially, again, if I receive auditions that are not coming from my agent, because my agent is my rep, and my rep is not going to put me in a precarious situation. So if it's a little bit longer and it's coming from my agent, I read the whole thing. But if it's coming, if I'm getting a random email from somebody on my website and they give me this 2-page thing to do, never, because that could be the whole doggone thing and they could use it.
Exactly.
And you never know. So I give them a little taste. I give them the appetizer. If they want the full meal, well, you gotta wine me and dine me in order to get the whole package, baby.
Oh, I totally agree with you. So if it's coming from an agent, yes, I do it. And sometimes though, I really am like, really? They need the whole thing? There are some of my agents that'll be like, look, you only need to read the first paragraph, which I'm always appreciative of. But if there are no instructions and it comes from your agent, I'm just going to say, know your agent, right? And do the whole thing for your agent. If it comes from any other place, like somebody requesting off your website or maybe a pay-to-play, then I absolutely would not do the entire thing because it's just harder to keep track of. I mean, your agent is there because they have your back, right? That's one of the wonderful, wonderful advantages of having the agent, that they negotiate for you and that they have your back.
Yeah, they alleviate that headache and the stress. So yeah, for sure.
So it was interesting to talk to you to see what your reaction is and how you do. I think we pretty much do things very similarly. And, I think bosses out there, the best thing you can do is really pay attention to the directions, know your agent, and just accommodate. I mean, you are working with your agent as a team, and
yes,
do whatever you can to accommodate and make your audition stand out.
That's right. And when it starts with that slate, you better think about it.
That's right. Extend your hand.
Extend your hand. Get physical with it and create that visual in your mind.
Yes. Awesome. Good stuff, Keisha, girl. All right, bosses. I'm going to give a big shout out to my sponsor, IPDTL. You too can connect and network like a boss. Find out more at IPDTL.com. You guys have an amazing week and go out there and just create that amazing first impression and go get that gig.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right. Have a great week, guys. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Join us next week for another edition of VO Boss with your host, Ann Ganguza. And take your business to the next level. Sign up for our mailing list at voboss.com and receive exclusive content, industry revolutionizing tips and strategies, and new ways to rock your business like a boss. Redistribution with permission, coast-to-coast connectivity via IPDTL.